Book 2, Volume 1, Nightmare. Prologue. A different world. A new hero. The mists roll in, curling through mountain valleys and clinging to the roofs of a small, isolated village. Narrow cobblestone paths twist between weathered houses, and beyond them stretch endless forests, dense, silent, and older than memory itself. At night, lanterns flicker faintly in the windows, their glow swallowed by the fog. This is Cordu Village, a place forgotten by time and by the outside world. Unlike the industrial sprawl of Tingen or Backland, Cordu feels untouched by modernity. There are no factories, no sprawling churches, only a scattering of simple homes and an unshakable sense of ritual. Villagers live quietly here, bound by ancient customs they barely question but never dare break. It is here, far from the remnants of Klein Moretti's legend, that our new story begins. Lumian Lee, the trickster in the mist. Lumian Lee wakes to the sound of distant bells. A young man of 20, Lumian carries himself with an air of restless energy. His sharp blue eyes miss little, and a mischievous smirk often plays on his lips, hinting at the trouble he's caused or is about to cause. Unlike Klein, whose cautious intellect guided him through mysteries, Lumian is bold, impulsive, and endlessly curious. He thrives on chaos, drawn to danger as if it calls to him. Life in Cordu is quiet, too quiet for someone like Lumian. Alongside him is his sister, Aurora Lee, a gentle yet enigmatic figure whose serene presence hides secrets even Lumian does not fully grasp. She watches over him with a mixture of affection and quiet sorrow. Their bond is strong, forged through hardship in a village where outsiders are unwelcome and the supernatural lurks just beyond the veil of ordinary life. The Festival of Unseen Flames. It begins with a festival. Every spring, Cordu celebrates a ritual older than memory, a night of bonfires and dancing masks, honoring powers the villagers no longer name. To Lumian, the festival is both captivating and strange, a fleeting spark of life in an otherwise stagnant place. But this year feels different. The air hums with unease. Strange symbols are painted on doorways. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Aurora seems tense, her usual calm replaced by quiet worry. She urges Lumian to stay close, to be careful, though she refuses to say why. As the fires burn and music rises, Lumian notices odd details. The villagers' eyes, glassy and distant. The rhythm of the dance, repeating like a chant. The way the flames seem to bend unnaturally with each beat of the drum. The first loop. The next morning, Lumian wakes confused, unsettled. The festival. It's happening again. Same bonfires, same songs, same whispered warnings from Aurora. At first, he dismisses it as déjà vu, but as the day unfolds, the pattern repeats exactly. Every word, every step, every flicker of the fire is the same as the night before. When the loop resets a third time, terror replaces curiosity. Lumian is trapped in a nightmare cycle, forced to relive the festival again and again. Each loop begins with him waking at dawn and ends when the fires die out and darkness consumes him. No matter what he changes, no matter who he warns or what path he takes, time resets. The only constant is Aurora. She remembers nothing. Each new cycle, she greets Lumian with the same soft smile, unaware of the horrors he's endured. Shadows in the forest. Determined to break free, Lumian begins to explore the edges of the village. The deeper he wanders into the surrounding forests, the stranger things become. There are ruins buried beneath moss, half swallowed by the earth. Stone altars scarred with carvings that hum faintly at night. He finds remnants of rituals long abandoned or perhaps never truly gone. And always there is the presence in the woods, something watching. Sometimes it's a flicker in the corner of his vision, other times a low whisper in the wind. The loops give him time to explore, but also time to realize how dangerous this presence is. The further he pushes, the more it stirs. Aurora's secret. In the fourth loop, Lumian begins to suspect Aurora is hiding something. She speaks softly in her sleep, murmuring words in an unknown language. He catches glimpses of strange sigils etched onto scraps of parchment she keeps hidden beneath her bed. And when the festival begins anew, Aurora's eyes seem to glow faintly in the firelight. One night, during a rare moment of confession, Aurora admits the truth. She is a beyonder, The Beyonder system reintroduced. For those unfamiliar, Beyonders are humans who have consumed mystical potions granting supernatural powers tied to pathways, progressions of abilities inspired by tarot archetypes. Aurora's pathway is different from Klein's seer pathway. Hers is connected to darker, more elusive forces. She warns Lumion of the dangers of becoming a Beyonder of the madness that can consume those unprepared for the strain. But Lumion, reckless and determined, sees Beyonder power as his only escape from the nightmare. The first ritual, using knowledge gleaned from Aurora and his own repeated explorations, Lumion attempts a ritual. In one loop, he steals sacred herbs from the village priest. In another, he braves the forbidden woods to retrieve relics buried beneath an ancient altar. Piece by piece, he assembles what he needs. The ritual succeeds partially. Power floods Lumion's veins, sharpening his senses, warping his perception. He sees flickers of the unseen, shadows moving where there should be none, faint threads connecting villagers like a web. But the power comes with a cost. Nightmares bleed into waking life. Whispers follow him even when the loop resets. New players in the game. As Lumion struggles with his new abilities, strangers arrive in the village. One is a traveling priest whose smiles never reach his eyes. Another, a quiet woman draped in veils, speaks only in riddles. They seem unaffected by the loops, watching Lumion with knowing gazes, and in the shadows, a name surfaces: the Inevitability Circle, a secretive group whose motives remain unknown, but whose presence looms over every event. Toward the breaking point, each loop brings Lumion closer to the truth. He learns that the festival is more than celebration, it is sacrifice. The villagers, knowingly or not, participate in a ritual feeding something ancient buried beneath Cordu. Aurora's power is tied to it, as is Lumion's fate. On the final night of the last loop, the festival spirals into chaos. Flames rise unnaturally high, devouring not wood but reality itself. Villagers chant in a tongue older than memory, their voices merging into a single inhuman roar. At the center of it all stands Aurora, her eyes glowing like twin moons. The loops tighten. By the seventh loop, Lumion knows every stone in the village, every creak of the wooden bridge, every glance the villagers cast during the festival. He has memorized their routines, their secrets, and most disturbingly, their lies. At first, he believed the loops were punishment, some divine joke meant to break his mind. But patterns have begun to emerge, tiny inconsistencies that shift between loops. A door slightly ajar when it should be closed. A villager who coughs in one cycle but not in another. These differences point towards someone interfering with the cycle. Aurora remains unchanged, locked in her own ignorance each time. Lumion's frustration grows. He wants to protect her, but each attempt to break the loop ends in failure. The nightmare persists. The path of a Beyonder. After countless loops, Lumion finally understands the truth. The festival itself is a ritual, and he is caught inside its cycle of offering and renewal. The only way out is to confront the force at the ritual's heart. Aurora warns him again. Becoming a Beyonder is irreversible. The potions grant power, yes, but they twist the mind. Too much strain, and one loses themselves entirely, transforming into a monster. But Lumion has no choice. Consuming the first potion, he prepares carefully. With Aurora's reluctant help and knowledge scavenged from forgotten ruins, Lumion crafts his first Beyonder potion. The ritual is perilous. An ancient chant whispered under moonlight, herbs burned on sacred ground, blood drawn as offering. The moment he drinks it, agony floods his body. Visions assault him, fractured images of masked figures, endless fog, and a burning wheel turning in the void. His senses sharpen violently. He hears every heartbeat in the village, feels every shift in the wind, and then silence. When Lumion awakens, he is changed. He has taken his first step into the Hunter Pathway. The Hunter Pathway. The Hunter Pathway grants enhanced perception, agility, and predatory instincts. It sharpens reflexes, allowing one to track prey and strike with uncanny precision. But it also stirs a primal hunger, a thrill for the chase that threatens to overtake reason. Lumion quickly discovers both sides of this gift. He can see in the dark now, track footsteps invisible to others, sense danger before it strikes. But he also feels the urge to stalk, to hunt not animals, but people. Control becomes his greatest struggle. Aurora's revelation. In the 10th loop, Aurora's own secret unravels. Confronted by Lumion, she reveals her identity. She belongs to a hidden pathway linked to the Sun Tarot, a branch shrouded in myth, granting light-based powers that burn corruption and concealment. Her abilities, though dormant most of the time, tie directly into the festival ritual. Aurora is both victim and key. Without her, the cycle cannot continue. With her, it cannot end. Her confession deepens Lumion's resolve. He will break the loop not just for himself, but to free her from the nightmare. The festival unmasked. Lumion's new hunter abilities allow him to notice details he previously missed. The villagers are not merely celebrating, they are possessed. During the festival, their movements are eerily synchronized, their chants carrying layered harmonics no human throat should produce. Their masked faces hide hollow eyes, glowing faintly in the firelight. At the center of it all stands the village priest, a figure long trusted, now revealed as the true orchestrator of the ritual. His prayers are not to the Evernight goddess, but to something older, something buried deep beneath Cordu, the thing beneath the village. Through visions and clues gathered across loops, Lumion pieces together the truth. Beneath Cordu lies a sealed entity, an ancient remnant of the inevitability circle, a cult predating even the churches of the modern era. The festival serves as its feeding ritual, sustaining its existence and keeping it bound. Each cycle renews the seal, but at a cost. The sacrifice of those within the loop. Lumion realizes grimly. He is the sacrifice. Breaking the cycle. The climax begins on the 13th loop. Armed with hunter reflexes, forbidden knowledge, and Aurora's reluctant aid, Lumion strikes during the festival. He disrupts the ritual mid-chant, seizing the sacred flame and turning it against the priest. Chaos erupts. The villagers scream, their hollow eyes blazing as the entity beneath awakens fully for the first time. The ground trembles. Flames twist unnaturally, coalescing into a towering figure of shadow and fire. A voice older than humanity echoes through Lumion's mind, promising inevitable union consumption rebirth. Lumion fights not just for escape, but for identity. If he fails, he will become part of the entity, another hollow echo trapped in the cycle. Aurora's sacrifice. As the nightmare reaches its peak, Aurora intervenes. Drawing on her own latent power, she channels blinding light, momentarily weakening the entity. The act burns her life force. She knows she will not survive. But in her final moments, she whispers a plea to Lumion. Live, and remember me. The light shatters the loop. Lumion wakes not in Cordu, but beyond it, lying in the wilds outside the village. The festival is gone. The cycle is broken. Aurora is gone too. Aftermath. A new path begins. Grief tempers Lumion's victory. The village lies in ruins. The entity's whispers linger faintly in his mind. He knows this was only the beginning. The cult behind the ritual, the inevitability circle, still exists beyond Cordu, and somewhere, perhaps beyond death, Aurora's soul may yet endure. With nothing left to lose, Lumion sets out from the ruins of Cordu, determined to master his newfound powers and uncover the truth behind the forces that destroyed his home. His journey has only begun. The days of repetition. Time lost meaning for Lumion. He no longer knew how many times the sun had risen over Cordu village, nor how many times it had fallen. Each loop blurred into the next, each festival a copy of the last, until only his growing knowledge of the cycle set them apart. He learned to anticipate every moment: the tolling of the bells at dawn, the creak of the market stall where bread was sold, the faint smile Aurora wore as she tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. He memorized it all, clinging to these details as lifelines in an unraveling reality. But knowledge brought no comfort. Each revelation stripped away the illusion of normalcy, exposing the rot festering beneath Cordu's quaint facade. The villagers' hollow eyes. At first glance, the villagers were ordinary. Farmers tending fields, mothers comforting children, elders murmuring prayers to the Evernight goddess. But with each loop, Lumion noticed more subtle twitches, synchronized gestures, murmurs that continued even when mouths were closed. They were puppets. Not all of them, not always, but during the festival their wills were swallowed by something greater. The inevitability circle, a cult older than the churches, held them in its thrall. The name whispered itself into Lumion's mind one night, as if carried on the wind. Inevitability. A concept both comforting and terrifying that fate itself was a wheel, and all within it must eventually return to its center. The hunter's instincts. The potion had changed him. At first, Lumion reveled in the clarity, hearing distant conversations, tracking footprints in the dirt, tasting lies in the air. But soon came the darker urges, the thrill of pursuit, the rush of cornering prey. Every festival night, as masked villagers danced around the bonfire, Lumion's hands itched to hunt. He fought to stay himself, but the hunter pathway whispered promises of strength. Give in, and you will survive. Aurora's warnings echoed in his mind. Every step deeper is harder to return from. Aurora's hidden past. In one loop, desperation led Lumion to follow Aurora into the woods. He found her at a stone altar, cloaked in moonlight, whispering prayers not found in any church scripture. The words burned in his ears, both sacred and profane. In that moment, he realized Aurora's connection to the loop was deeper than she admitted. Aurora had been chosen long before the festival began, not as a victim, but as a vessel, foreshadowing the greater world. Hints of the world beyond Cordu seeped into Lumion's loops. Stray travelers spoke of distant cities Trier, the glittering capital of the Intis Republic, where steamships lined the harbor and masked balls hid the ambitions of nobles and cultists alike. Whispers of secret organizations reached his ears. The Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun, the Order of the Mother Tree of Desire, and rumors of survivors who still worshipped forgotten outer gods. Though trapped in Cordu, Lumion sensed his fate tied to this wider world, a stage where gods and monsters moved unseen. The priest's true nature. The village priest had always been kind. He blessed newborns, healed the sick, offered comfort to grieving families. But beneath the warmth lay fanaticism. His faith was not in the Evernight goddess, but in inevitability itself, the belief that all events, all choices, all lives must bend toward a singular outcome. Lumion's hunter senses exposed him. The priest's heartbeat never quickened, even in lies. His prayers were perfect recitations, mechanical and cold. And during the festival, when the villagers danced in frenzy, the priest's calm smile never wavered. He was the circle's hand, guiding the loop with unseen strings. Encounter with the entity. In the 12th loop, Lumion ventured deeper into the woods than ever before. Guided by whispers, he found a cavern beneath the village, sealed by stone and scripture older than human memory. The air inside tasted of metal and ozone. The walls pulsed faintly, alive. There, he sought a fragment of the entity the villagers served. It defied description. A wheel of flesh and flame, spinning in silence, eyes opening and closing along its surface. It radiated inevitability, the sense that everything his life, his choices, even his thoughts had led him here. And in that silence, it spoke. Hunter. Aurora's choice. By the 14th loop, Lumion had pieced together the ritual's truth. Aurora was the anchor. Her soul bound the entity, her life force fueling the cycle. To break it, she would have to sever that bond, a severing she would not survive. When Lumion confronted her, Aurora did not argue. She smiled softly, sadness in her eyes. You've always been chasing something, Lumi. I just hope you find what you're looking for. Preparing the final ritual. Lumion used the last loops to prepare. He scouted every villager, every secret tunnel, every weakness in the priest's plan. He stole relics, forged crude weapons, memorized incantations whispered by the entity itself. By the final cycle, he was no longer the mischievous boy who once longed for adventure. He was a hunter, scarred, hardened, relentless. The final festival. The night of the final festival arrived. Masks gleamed in firelight. Drums thundered like heartbeats. The villagers moved in perfect unison, chanting words older than stars. Lumion moved among them, unseen, muscles coiled like a predator. He spotted Aurora at the center, eyes closed, hands clasped in prayer. The priest raised his arms, voice rising above the chants. The wheel beneath Cordu stirred. The festival at its zenith. The festival's music rose to a fever pitch. Drums thundered like a heartbeat. Strings screeched, and flutes wailed in a tune that was neither joyful nor mournful, but inevitable. The masked villagers swayed in circles, their steps inhumanly precise, forming a living mandala around the bonfire. The flames reached unnaturally high, tongues of fire spiraling skyward as if drawn toward some unseen star. Sparks hissed like whispers, each one murmuring fragments of forgotten prayers. Lumion stood at the edge of the circle, heart hammering. Sweat trickled down his brow, not from heat but from anticipation. He had prepared for this moment across countless loops, refining every step, memorizing every weakness. Aurora was at the center, veiled in pale light, lips moving silently. Her presence anchored the ritual, a beacon for the thing beneath Cordu. The priest raised his hands. His mask, painted white with streaks of crimson, reflected the firelight. His voice rang clear over the chant, from dust to wheel, from wheel to flame. Return to the circle. Return to inevitability. The villagers repeated the words in perfect unison. The entity awakens. The earth trembled beneath the bonfire. Stone cracked. A low hum vibrated through the ground, deep enough to rattle bones. Flames bent inward, sucked toward a singular point as reality itself warped. Then it appeared. A wheel of flesh and fire burst from the earth, spinning silently. Its surface crawled with eyes, some human, some animal, some unrecognizable opening and closing in erratic rhythm. Each eye wept tears of light, which dripped upward rather than down. The presence was overwhelming. It wasn't merely seen or heard. It imposed itself upon reality, bending thought and emotion around its axis. Lumion felt his knees buckle, mind fracturing under the weight of inevitability. The entity's voice reverberated inside his skull, layered and infinite. Hunter. Chosen. Return. The battle begins. Lumion acted. With a roar, he hurled a stolen ritual dagger at the priest, aiming for the throat. The blade spun through the firelight and stopped midair, frozen by unseen force. The priest turned calmly, the dagger dropping harmlessly to the ground. Child, the priest intoned, voice unnaturally serene, you were never meant to resist. Lumion lunged, Hunter instincts surging. His senses stretched unnaturally, time slowed, heartbeats thundered in his ears. He ducked under a villager's swing, slashed upward with another blade, and tore through the chanting circle. But for every villager he felled, two more took their place. Their eyes glowed white, movements mechanical, bodies driven by the entity's will. Aurora's stand. At the ritual's center, Aurora's eyes snapped open, twin suns blazing with light. For the first time, she remembered. She remembered every loop, every failure, every death, every choice Lumion had made to save her. Tears streaked her face, but her voice was steady as she stepped toward the entity. Her hands glowed with radiant fire, a power not of the Hunter pathway, but something rarer, older. A fragment of the sun pathway, whispered in forbidden hymns. Lumi, she called softly through the chaos. I love you. Before Lumion could react, Aurora thrust her hand skyward and screamed an invocation. The light against the wheel. A column of pure light erupted from Aurora, piercing the night sky. The flames of the bonfire were swallowed, replaced by searing brilliance. Villagers shrieked, masks cracking and melting as they collapsed. The wheel howled a sound beyond human comprehension, felt more than heard. Its eyes snapped shut, bleeding light. The ground split apart as the entity convulsed, torn between hunger and retreat. The priest fell to his knees, mask shattering. His calm expression warped into terror as Aurora's light consumed him. But light is fleeting. Aurora's body withered, her radiance burning her from within. In her final breath, she looked at Lumion, no words, only a smile, and released everything. The shattering of the loop. Reality screamed. The wheel fractured, its eyes exploding into motes of fire. The villagers dissolved into ash, carried upward by a wind that did not exist. The world folded inward, collapsing into a single point of blinding light. Lumion felt himself ripped apart, body and soul scattering like leaves in a storm. And then silence. The world after. Lumion awoke in the forest outside Cordu. No village, no festival, only ruins and silence where life once stood. The air was heavy, thick with the residue of power. His hunter's senses throbbed painfully, every sound too loud, every scent too sharp. Aurora was gone, not buried, not vanished, simply gone, as though erased from the fabric of reality. The only trace was the faint warmth lingering on Lumion's chest, where she had embraced him in the final moment. It faded quickly, leaving only emptiness. The whisper that remains. As Lumion staggered to his feet, A whisper coiled in his mind, faint yet unmistakable. "Hunter!" The circle turned still. It was the entity. Wounded, but not destroyed. Bound no longer to Cordu, it roamed, seeking reunion. Lumion clenched his fists. The hunter's hunger gnawed at him, demanding chase, demanding blood. But deeper than hunger was grief, a hollow ache where Aurora's presence had been. He swore then, to the silent woods, "I'll find you, I'll finish this, whatever it takes," foreshadowing. Toward Trier. In the distance, smoke rose from trains winding toward the city of Trier, a sprawling metropolis of steam and secrets. Whispers of cults, factions, and beyonders awaited him there. The inevitability circle was only one of many forces at play, in a world where gods walked unseen and every choice led closer to madness. Lumion began walking, a lone hunter, carrying grief and destiny into the wider world. Silence after the storm. The forest was unnervingly quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind, only the hollow sound of Lumion's ragged breathing. The ruins of Cordu village smoldered behind him, blackened timbers jutting from the ground like broken teeth. Where once had been life and laughter, only ash remained. Lumion knelt, clutching his chest. The faint warmth left by Aurora's sacrifice had vanished entirely. It felt as though part of him had been carved out a wound deeper than flesh. The hunter's instincts urged him to move, to survive. But grief pinned him in place. For the first time since the nightmare began, he was free. And he had never felt so lost. The hunter's new reality. The potion's effects lingered. Lumion's senses were sharper than ever, distant rustling miles away, the faint metallic tang of dried blood in the ruins, even the heartbeat of a deer hidden deep in the forest. But the gift came with shadows. At night, he dreamed of the wheel eyes opening in the dark, voices murmuring inevitability. Hunger gnawed at him, not for food, but for the thrill of pursuit. The hunter pathway demanded motion, demanded prey. Aurora's last words anchored him. "Live and remember me." He swore he would, but he also swore something else. Vengeance. The inevitability circle, a threat beyond Cordu. Cordu's destruction was not the end. The priest had been only a fragment, a local hand of something vast. Through fragments of ritual knowledge and whispers from the entity, Lumion pieced together grim truths. The inevitability circle is one of the oldest cults in existence, predating even the modern churches. They worship not a single god, but a concept, that all paths lead to the same end, and all beings must return to the wheel. The entity beneath Cordu was merely one fragment of their power. Others linger in hidden places, cities, forests, ruins feeding the circle's inevitable plan. The fight was far from over. It had only begun. Aurora's hidden legacy. Aurora's sacrifice left more than grief behind. In Lumion's dreams, flashes of her power lingered golden fire, a voice of clarity amid chaos. He began to suspect Aurora's connection to a higher force, perhaps even tied to the sun pathway glimpsed in Klein Moretti's story. Unbeknownst to Lumion, Aurora's final act had imprinted something within him, a spark that might one day awaken, shaping the course of his path in ways neither could foresee. The path forward. The ruins of Cordu offered no answers, only ghosts. Lumion turned his gaze toward the distant horizon, where smoke rose from the sprawling city of Trier, a place of opportunity and danger, where beyonders of every pathway clashed in secret wars beneath the glittering facade of industrial progress. To hunt the circle, Lumion would need allies, knowledge, and strength. Trier promised all three, and countless threats besides. The road would be long. The hunter pathway would tempt him at every step, and in the shadows, the wheel still turned. Key themes moving forward. This section is narrated subtly, like a storyteller's aside, perfect for listeners to anchor what matters without spoiling future events. Hunter pathway. Lumion's progression will hinge on balancing instinct and humanity. Each potion step grants power, but erodes sanity. The inevitability circle. Not destroyed, merely scattered. Expect their influence to emerge in cities, politics, and hidden cult cells. Aurora's legacy. Though gone, Aurora's presence lingers. Her sacrifice ties Lumion's fate to higher powers he doesn't yet understand. The wider world. The story expands beyond rural isolation into cosmopolitan Trier, where multiple factions, churches, secret organizations, rival beyonders collide. Closing scene. Toward Trier. The morning sun rose over the mountains, bathing the ruins of Cordoue in pale light. Lumion stood at the edge of the forest, cloak torn, eyes hard with resolve. The wind carried faint echoes laughter from a life now gone, whispers of inevitability still chasing him. He turned away from the ruins and began walking. Each step carried him closer to Trier, closer to answers, closer to the circle. The hunter was loose in the world. Volume 1, Nightmare End. Volume 2, Lightseeker. Introduction: A New World Awakens. The city of Trier is a shimmering jewel in the heart of the Intis Republic, a sprawling metropolis of steam, shadows, and secrets. Its streets pulse with the clang of factories, the chatter of merchants, and the whispers of masked societies. Here, the mundane and the mystical coexist. Steam-powered machines hum alongside occult rituals. Nobles hold masked balls while cultists plot beneath marble arches. This is where our story shifts. Lumion has escaped the nightmare of Cordoue, but his path leads deeper into a labyrinth of intrigue, where light and darkness battle not just for power, but for the very soul of the world. Enter Klein Moretti, a man whose very existence seems wrapped in mystery. A writer and journalist, Klein is an outsider in Trier's tangled social web. Known for his quick wit and sharper pen, he covers mundane stories by day, but by night, he is something else entirely. Klein is a beyonder, awakened to the powers of the seer pathway. Unlike the hunter's primal instincts, the seer wields foresight, divination, and manipulation of fate itself. Yet, Klein's powers come at a cost. Shadows claw at his mind, and each vision drains his sanity a little more. The seer pathway grants abilities unlike any other: precognition, clairvoyance, and subtle mind manipulation. But such gifts do not come freely. The veil between reality and madness thins with each use, and the seer risks losing themselves to the endless possibilities they glimpse. Klein's struggle is not just against external foes, but the growing darkness within. Trier prepares for its annual Festival of Illumination, a dazzling celebration marking the city's founding. Lanterns float like stars, music fills the streets, and nobles don intricate masks, hiding their ambitions beneath ornate disguises. But beneath the glamour, tension simmers. A secret war brews between powerful factions, rival churches, underground cults, and beyonders seeking to tip the balance of power. Klein is drawn into this web when he uncovers a cryptic message, hinting at a plot to sabotage the festival, a plot tied to the same inevitability circle that haunted Cordoue. Klein's investigation introduces a cast of complex characters: Dan Smith, a former soldier turned detective with a murky past and a cynical worldview; Antavius, an influential noble rumored to command secret cults and forbidden knowledge; and Zangwill, a mysterious figure cloaked in shadows, his loyalties unclear, but power undeniable. Each plays a role in the tangled dance of light and shadow surrounding Trier. Klein descends into Trier's underworld smoky taverns, shadowed alleyways, and secret societies where deals are brokered in whispers and blood. Here, he uncovers traces of the inevitability circle's reach, as well as clues to his own forgotten past. Every step reveals new dangers, but also new truths. A city of masks and secrets, Trier was a city where appearances meant everything, and truth was a mask worn loosely and often discarded. Klein moved through crowded streets, his eyes sharp beneath the brim of his hat. Every passerby might be a spy, an ally, or an enemy. Every whispered conversation, a thread in a vast tapestry of intrigue. The Festival of Illumination was days away, but tension thickened the air. Rumors spoke of assassinations, cult uprisings, and shadowy deals to control the city's fate. Klein sat alone in his modest apartment, pages of a half-finished manuscript scattered around him. He was no stranger to mysteries, but recently, his dreams had become different, vivid, and intrusive. In these dreams, flickering visions of people he had never met, faces masked in gold, a burning wheel turning endlessly, and a faint, haunting melody that tugged at his mind. One night, as rain tapped the window pane, the visions overwhelmed him. Suddenly, the room shifted. He saw the streets outside through the eyes of a woman far away, heard her heartbeat, and sensed her fear. He understood the meaning of a coded message scrawled hastily in a letter just delivered to his desk. This was the power of the Seer Pathway awakening. Klein's newfound abilities were exhilarating and terrifying. His mind expanded beyond the present, grasping at futures both possible and probable. He practiced quietly, peering through walls like glass, hearing distant conversations whispered in alleyways, sensing intentions before words were spoken. Yet each use drained him. His eyes darkened. Thoughts became tangled with shadowy fragments of other realities, and he felt sanity slipping like sand through fingers. News of an unusual murder brought Klein to a foggy district near the docks. Dan Smith awaited him in a dimly lit tavern, broad-shouldered, scarred, and wearing the wary expression of a man who had seen too much. A former soldier and now private detective, Dan had grown skeptical of the city's surface glitz. His job was to dig where others feared, to find truth beneath lies. He warned Klein, "You're chasing shadows, kid, but in Trier, the shadows bite back." Despite their differences, Klein and Dan agreed to work together their skills, complementing one another in the murky hunt for answers. Antavius was a name whispered in secret circles, a noble with influence beyond his title, rumored to command occult knowledge and secret cults. Klein's investigation revealed Antavius's involvement with gatherings linked to the Inevitability Circle. But Antavius remained elusive, a ghost behind velvet curtains and whispered deals. Each clue about him twisted further questions. What did he want from the Festival of Illumination? How deep was his allegiance to the Circle? Could he be an ally, or the greatest threat yet? Zangwill appeared as an enigma, neither friend nor foe, clearly defined. A shadow among shadows, he moved through Trier's elite with unsettling grace. His motives remained a mystery, but his power was undeniable. Whispers claimed Zangwill could command beasts, both mortal and supernatural, and that he played the city's factions like a master puppeteer. Klein felt his gaze like a blade whenever their paths crossed. As the Festival of Illumination neared, a sense of impending doom grew. Messages intercepted by Klein and Dan hinted at a plot to unleash chaos, a ritual designed to bend the city to the Inevitability Circle's will. Klein's visions darkened. The burning wheel returned repeatedly in dreams, spinning faster and faster. He knew the nightmare of Cordoue was not confined to the past. It was coming to Trier. The city holds its breath. Trier shimmered beneath a blanket of lantern light, its streets awash with color and sound. The Festival of Illumination had begun. Yet, beneath the joy and revelry, an undercurrent of dread pulsed like a hidden drum. Klein felt it in the air, a pressure suffocating and electric, as if the city itself awaited a storm. The more Klein used his seer powers, the more reality frayed around him. Shadows whispered from corners of his mind, twisting visions into nightmares. At times, he glimpsed versions of himself lost to madness, his eyes wild, his hands stained with blood. But there was no turning back. The visions held keys to stopping the Circle's plan. Dan met Klein in a smoky tavern. "Keep your wits," he said, voice low. "This isn't just some cult ritual. The Circle's influence runs deeper into the city's elite, the government, the churches. You're poking a hornet's nest." Klein nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. At secret meetings behind velvet curtains, Antavius plotted with shadowy figures. His ambition was clear: control Trier through the festival's power. Zangwill's presence at these gatherings was a silent threat, an enforcer, a wild card, or perhaps something darker. On the festival's final night, Klein witnessed the ritual begin. Masked cultists moved in precise choreography, chanting words older than the city itself. Flames twisted into unnatural shapes, and the burning wheel, the symbol of inevitability, appeared above the plaza. Klein's heart pounded. The nightmare of Cordoue echoed in every chant. Klein used every ounce of his seer power to disrupt the ritual. Visions flashed paths branching like rivers, some leading to victory, others to doom. He reached into the stream of fate, pulling threads, manipulating outcomes. But the cost was steep. His mind wavered on the edge of madness. The ritual was halted, but at great cost. The Circle's grip loosened, but not broken. Trier was changed. Shadows lingered in every corner, and the dance of light and darkness continued. The festival's turning point. The night air thickened with tension as the Festival of Illumination reached its crescendo. Lanterns floated above the plaza like captured stars, casting a fragile glow over the gathered crowd. But beneath the surface, The true players moved unseen cultists aligned with the inevitability circle, weaving their dark magic into the city's heartbeat. Klein felt the weight of destiny pressing down, his seer senses straining to keep pace with the unfolding chaos. In the shadowed halls behind the festivities, Klein finally faced Antavius. The noble's eyes gleamed with cold ambition as he spoke. "You meddle in affairs beyond your understanding, seer. The circle's will is inexorable. Join us, or be consumed." Klein's reply was steady but fierce. "I stand for choice, for light in the darkness. Your inevitability ends here." A tense silence followed, broken only by distant echoes of the festival's music. Suddenly, Zangwill appeared, his presence unsettling. With a voice like velvet and steel, he warned, "Antavius underestimates the cost of defying the wheel." Before Klein could react, a wave of power surged from Zangwill, forcing Klein back. Their conflict was not just physical, but metaphysical battles of will and fate clashing in a dance as old as time. Pushed to the edge, Klein tapped deeper into his seer pathway. Visions flooded his mind, potential futures flashing by in blinding speed. He saw allies falling, cities burning, and the crushing weight of inevitability sweeping across the world. But amidst the darkness, a single thread glowed: hope. With renewed determination, Klein channeled his power to disrupt the ritual's final moments, fracturing the circle's hold on Trier. As dawn broke, the city breathed a fragile sigh of relief. The ritual was broken, but the threat remained. The inevitability circle had been wounded, not destroyed. Klein and his allies knew the war for Trier and for the world was far from over. Aftermath and reflection. The city of Trier awoke under a pale dawn, its streets quiet but heavy with the memory of the night's turmoil. Lanterns flickered in the breeze, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Klein stood atop a rooftop, looking out over the city, a sea of light and darkness intertwined. He pondered the cost of victory. Allies gained and lost, powers awakened, and the ever-present threat of the inevitability circle looming like a storm on the horizon. Klein's seer abilities had grown, but so had the price. Each vision peeled away fragments of his sanity, threading him ever closer to the edge of madness. The voices in his head, whispers of countless possible futures, sometimes overwhelmed him. Yet, his resolve remained unshaken. "I will see the paths," he thought, "and choose the one that leads to salvation." Dan Smith's loyalty proved steadfast, his skills as a detective invaluable in the unfolding struggle. Rumors of new players reached Klein's ears, figures with powers rivaling his own, allies and enemies yet unseen. The city of Trier was a chessboard, and the next moves would decide the fate of many. Beyond Trier, the world simmered with unrest. The inevitability circle was but one thread in a vast tapestry of power struggles, secret societies, and ancient mysteries. Klein's journey was only beginning. As the sun climbed higher, Klein folded his coat around him and stepped into the awakening city. The festival of illumination was over, but the light it shed was fragile. In the shadows, new threats stirred. The seer's path would be long, perilous, and filled with impossible choices. But Klein Moretti would walk it, because some truths were worth the sacrifice. End of Volume 2. Lightseeker. Volume 3. Dreamweaver. Introduction. The Veil Between Worlds. The echoes of the Festival of Illumination still lingered in Trier's mist-filled streets. The inevitability circle's grip had been fractured, but peace was an illusion. In the wake of that battle, a new threat rose, not born of shadows and steel, but of dreams. This is a world where the waking and dreaming realms blur, where visions slip into reality and nightmares spill into daylight, where the subconscious whispers truths louder than the conscious mind. Klein Moretti, the seer, who once peered into possible futures, now finds himself walking paths between worlds, paths few could survive. The Dreamweaver Pathway. Unlike the seer's precognition and subtle manipulation, the Dreamweaver Pathway wields dominion over the mind's most fragile frontier, dreams. Dreamweavers enter the subconscious, craft illusions indistinguishable from reality, and twist memory into weapons. But power over dreams comes at a perilous cost. Lose yourself in another's mind, and you may never wake again. In Trier, whispers spread of a group who mastered this art, the Somnus Covenant. Their goal to bend the city's leaders through nightmares, enslaving Trier not with force, but with fear. Klein's new mission. Klein, scarred by past battles yet sharpened by them, learns of this new danger through troubling visions. burning streets, eyes that never close, and a golden spiral that hums with impossible lullabies. The name surfaces again and again. Dreamgate, a relic said to merge dream and reality, granting unimaginable power to its wielder. The Covenant seeks it, and to stop them, Klein must enter the dreamscape himself. Act I. Shadows in the fog. Trier haunted by dreams. The once vibrant city feels hollow. Rumors spread of nobles waking, screaming in the night, of artists painting scenes they had never seen, of children whispering secrets far beyond their years. Every alley, every square carries an uneasy stillness, as if the city itself sleeps with one eye open. Klein's seer powers sharpen in this atmosphere, but they also fray his mind. Visions bleed into waking life, echoes of futures, half-heard whispers, and phantom hands guiding him toward impossible choices. Morel Voss, the Dreamweaver. Morel Voss was once loyal to the Somnus Covenant. A Dreamweaver prodigy, her illusions could soothe the desperate or plunge the sane into terror. But guilt drove her away. She turned her back on the Covenant's extremism and now hides in the cracks of Trier's underworld, torn between redemption and survival. Morel becomes Klein's reluctant ally. She knows the Covenant's secrets and fears them. Dan Smith's return. Dan Smith, former soldier turned private detective, re-enters Klein's orbit. Skeptical of the occult, yet drawn by loyalty, he follows Klein into a world of nightmares with little more than grit and instinct. "I hate this," Dan mutters, staring at misty corridors twisting unnaturally. "Your world just keeps getting worse." Klein offers no reassurance. In Trier, truth is a luxury no one can afford. Elias Fallow, the Puppet Master. Behind the Covenant's rise stands Elias Fallow, a charismatic politician with ambitions masked by polished charm. Fallow wields dreams like chains, whispering suggestions into sleeping minds, bending Trier's counsel without them even knowing. To him, the Dreamgate is not merely power, it is destiny. Act 2. Crossing into Dreams. The Dreamscape Unveiled. Guided by Morel, Klein steps beyond the waking world into the dreamscape, a realm where memory, fear, and imagination blend. Streets coil like serpents. Skies burn with impossible colors. Echoes of the past mingle with futures not yet written. Here, reality is mutable and every thought shapes the battlefield. The Dreamgate. At the heart of this shifting realm lies the Dreamgate, a pulsing vortex of light and shadow, thrumming with ancient resonance. Legends claim it can merge the dream world with reality. Those who control it could reshape existence itself or plunge it into eternal nightmare. The Covenant plans to awaken the Dreamgate during the Night of Reverie, a ritual aligned with celestial patterns unseen in centuries. The growing threat. Klein's visions intensify. He sees fragments, a city consumed by nightmare flames. Morel's silhouette fading into mist. A wheel of inevitability, spinning faster and faster. The future is not fixed, but the closer Klein looks, the more fragile it feels. Act 3. The Night of Reverie. The ritual begins. Midnight. Trier falls under unnatural stillness. Lanterns extinguish. Dreams synchronize. The Covenant's ritual begins beneath the ancient cathedral, where waking and dreaming collide. Klein, Morel, and Dan descend into the sanctum. Walls melt into mist, corridors lead everywhere and nowhere. Shadows whisper promises they dare not heed. At the center, the Dreamgate, alive, waiting, confronting Elias Fallow. Elias Fallow steps from the haze, adorned in robes woven from dream stuff. His eyes reflect countless lives, countless futures. "Dreams are truth, seer," Elias intones. "Wakefulness is the lie we tell ourselves. I will free this world from its shackles." Klein steadies himself, heart pounding. "You're not freeing them. You're bending them to your will." The battle of wills. This is no ordinary fight. Elias conjures nightmares from Klein's own fears, burning cities, friends turning traitor, futures where Klein himself becomes the monster. Klein answers with foresight and illusion, bending probability to thread narrow paths toward survival. Morel tears through Elias's defenses, wielding dreamcraft against her former master, even as guilt weighs on her soul. Dan, powerless in this realm, anchors Klein's sanity, reminding him of the waking world's reality as visions threaten to drown him. The shattering of the dream gate. The dream gate pulses violently as the battle crescendos. Morel, in an act of redemption, shatters its protective wards, exposing it. The backlash consumes her. She collapses, barely clinging to life. Klein seizes the opening. Threads of fate converge. He strikes, not with blade, but with will, fracturing the dream gate in a blinding surge of light. The artifact implodes. Nightmares dissolve into nothingness. The ritual collapses. Act 4. Aftermath. Dawn in Trier. Morning bells toll across Trier. Citizens awaken, unaware of the nightmare they survived. For Klein, victory is hollow. The dream gate is destroyed, but Elias Fallow escapes dissolved into mist, his fate uncertain. The Somnus Covenant is fractured but not gone. Their whispers will return. Morel's fate. Morel survives, but disappears into hiding. Her knowledge of Dreamcraft and the Covenant's secrets makes her both asset and target. Klein suspects their paths will cross again. The Seer's burden. Klein's powers grow sharper and darker. Visions of futures multiply, layered atop one another. Every choice splinters into countless possibilities, and the whispers grow louder. Sanity frays, but Klein accepts the price. Foreshadowing the next battle. Beyond Trier, storms gather. The inevitability circle regroups. Other pathways, Hunter, Marauder, Sleepless, stir in distant lands. And somewhere beyond mortal sight, a darkness greater than all looms watching, waiting. Closing reflection. Klein stands atop Trier's tallest tower as dawn gilds the city. The fog lifts, revealing fragile peace below. One battle ends, he murmurs. The war is only beginning. End of Volume 3. Dreamweaver. Volume 4. Hunter. Introduction. Blood and Instinct. The mists of Trier had scarcely cleared from the nightmare of the Dreamgate when new terrors began to stalk its streets. Whispers spread of beasts and human-form predators born not of nightmares, but of blood and instinct. Klein Moretti, the seer who once fought illusions and subtle manipulations, now faced enemies of raw savagery. The Hunter Pathway had entered the stage. The Hunter Pathway explained. Hunters embodied primal predation. Their powers sharpened every sense, honed every reflex, and pushed them toward feral perfection. But the deeper they descended into their sequences, the more humanity slipped away, until only the beast remained. Hunters lived by one creed: the strong hunt, the weak are prey. The new threat, the Red Fang Order. Out of the chaos left by the Dreamweaver's fall rose the Red Fang Order, a cult venerating predation as divine law. Led by Lucien Dragor, a master of patience and precision, they sought ascension through blood rites, each kill a step toward ultimate dominance. Their message was simple. Trier would no longer be a city of men, but a hunting ground. Act 1. The murders begin. The first killings. The Order's presence was first marked by horror, a string of brutal murders. Throats torn apart, claw marks raked through stone, ritual symbols drawn in blood. Victims shared one trait: influence. Nobles, merchants, and guards, each secretly tied to occult dealings, now silenced forever. Klein's Investigation. Klein, drawn by visions of glowing eyes and dripping claws, partnered with Captain Roderick Hall Trier's skeptical but desperate constable. Hall distrusted the occult, but mounting evidence left him no choice. Conventional investigation had failed. The killings grew bolder by the night, signs of the Hunter Pathway. Klein's deductions revealed chilling truths. The killer possessed enhanced speed and reflexes, unmistakable hallmarks of the Hunter Pathway. Ritualistic markings suggested ascension rite sacrifices to climb higher sequences. Whispers pointed to an underground faction known as the Red Fang Order. Allies and scholars. Enter Eloin Graves, an occult scholar who cataloged predatory pathways. She outlined the Hunter progression. Sequence 9. Wild Hunter Primal Instincts. Heightened Senses. Sequence 8. Beast Slayer. Lethal combat and unparalleled tracking. Sequence 7. Predator, where beast and man blur. Above these, darker forms existed legends of hunters beyond mortal comprehension. Act 2. Into the Maw. Klein's Infiltration. Determined to stop the killings, Klein infiltrated the Red Fang's hidden lair beneath abandoned slaughterhouses. The halls reeked of dried blood. Walls were etched with predator, prey symbols. Disguised by illusions and foresight, Klein moved cautiously, but among primal hunters, deceit was dangerous. They could smell lies. Lucien Dragor appears. Lucien Dragor revealed himself a calm predator in human form, towering yet silent. Unlike frenzied initiates, Dragor embodied perfect control, his golden eyes scanning every motion. "You're not prey," Dragor murmured to Klein. "Not yet, but all men break. When you do, I'll be there to see what remains." The Hunter's Creed. The Order's twisted philosophy unfolded. Civilization weakens, the hunt strengthens. Only predators deserve to ascend. Every ritual kill proves worth in blood. Trier, to them, was not home, it was the arena. Act 3. The Crimson Hunt. The ritual revealed. Klein uncovered the Order's ultimate ceremony, the Crimson Hunt. Through ritual slaughter, Dragor aimed to ascend, transforming into a predator unbound by humanity. The final sacrifice required a seer. Klein realized with grim clarity. He was the prey they intended to hunt. The hunt begins. Dragged into the ritual, Klein was released into the catacombs beneath Trier tunnels twisted into a maze of rust and bone. The Order pursued him relentlessly. Growls echoed. Claws scraped stone. Every corridor ended in an ambush. Klein's foresight saved him by seconds, predicting attacks, collapsing passages, luring hunters into traps. But Dragor never rushed. He stalked Klein patiently, the perfect predator waiting for the perfect kill. The final confrontation. In the heart of the catacombs, Klein turned the tables. Using his visions, he lured Dragor into an ancient chamber, a vault of volatile chemicals and occult remnants. When Dragor struck, Klein triggered the trap. The explosion shattered the ritual site, killing most of the Order and burying Dragor beneath rubble. Act 4. Aftermath. The silence after. The killing ceased. Trier breathed relief, though unease lingered. Captain Hall, shaken, resigned from service, unwilling to fight wars against monsters men could not comprehend. Mirel and Elowen. Mirel Voss, the Dreamweaver ally from before, resurfaced briefly, her warnings of broader conspiracies hinting at greater wars ahead. Elowen Graves, ever the scholar, uncovered chilling truths. The Red Fang were but splinters. Their rights traced back to a greater enemy. The inevitability circle returning, stronger than ever. Klein's visions. Klein's foresight intensified. Thrones of bone in endless mist, chains coiled around dying stars. Himself, feral-eyed, teetering between man and monster. The seer's path grew darker with every step, foreshadowing the next war. Far beyond Trier, storm clouds gathered, Dreamweaver remnants rebuilding. The inevitability circle hunting lost artifacts, pathways converging toward an unseen apocalypse. Closing reflection. Klein stood atop Trier's cathedral spire, mist rolling off rooftops below. Hunter, Dreamweaver, seer, pieces on a board we cannot see. With that, Klein vanished into the fog, one battle won, but the true war yet to come. End of Volume 4. Hunter. Volume 5. Sleepless full narration script. Introduction. When night never comes. The city of Trier, scarred by hunters and dreamers, now faced a more insidious threat. The absence of rest. Where once dreams had ruled, now only wakefulness remained. The sleepless pathway was a curse and a weapon, a power that banished sleep, prolonged agony, and unleashed horrors from beyond the veil of consciousness. For Klein Moretti, the seer, the nights had become battlegrounds where sanity itself was the prize. The sleepless pathway explained. Unlike the seer's visions or the hunter's ferocity, the sleepless wielded control over their own consciousness, or rather, the denial of it. Masters of insomnia, their minds never rested. This eternal wakefulness unlocked terrifying abilities, heightened awareness, resistance to pain, and the ability to manipulate others' perceptions of reality. But the cost was unbearable. Madness whispered at the edge of their minds, threatening to consume them whole. New threats arise. In the shadows, a sect known as the Nocturnals emerged, devoted to the sleepless pathway. Their leader, Celine Var, was a figure shrouded in mystery, said to possess power so absolute she had not slept in decades. Their goal was to infiltrate Trier's institutions, bending minds and will through exhaustion and manipulation, preparing the city for a nightmare beyond comprehension. Klein's new challenge. As Klein's own visions grew darker and more fragmented, he found sleep impossible. The boundary between dreams and waking blurred to nothingness. Haunted by memories and premonitions, Klein must now walk a thin line between clarity and madness, fighting enemies who preyed on sleeplessness itself. The city in exhaustion. Trier was changing. Citizens shuffled through foggy streets, eyes bloodshot and vacant. Sleeplessness spread like a disease. Workers collapsed mid-shift, families fractured by endless nights, and whispers of madness grew louder. At the center of this malaise was the Nocturnals, a shadowy sect whose tendrils reached deep into the city's power structures. Celine Var, the Sleepless Queen. Celine Var, the enigmatic leader of the Nocturnals, was said to possess near-immortal vitality, decades without sleep, yet sharp as a razor and colder than ice. Her followers believed sleeplessness was transcendence, a path to untold power and control. Her ultimate goal: to shatter the barriers between waking and dreaming, creating a new world order ruled by eternal consciousness. Klein's Investigation. Despite his own failing rest, Klein began tracking the Nocturnals' influence. He infiltrated secret meetings, observed strange rituals, and uncovered links to Trier's elite, the city council, merchants, and even law enforcement. Sleep deprivation was their weapon, manipulation their tool. The Sleepless Pathway's effects. The Sleepless Pathway granted powers that blurred reality illusion, mind control, heightened reflexes, but at a cost, increasing madness and detachment from humanity. Klein's visions became fragmented mosaics, distorted faces, impossible geometry, and the relentless ticking of an unseen clock counting down an unknown doom. Allies and enemies. Old allies like Morel Voss and Elowen Graves returned, offering insight and caution. Morel's dream-weaving skills countered the Nocturnals' manipulations, while Elowen's research connected the sect to even older occult traditions. Yet enemies lurked within, hidden among those Klein once trusted. The veil between reality and madness. As days bled into nights without rest, Klein's grip on reality weakened. The boundary between waking and dreaming dissolved into a shifting haze, where shadows whispered secrets and time bent unnaturally. Visions grew vivid and disturbing. Fractured memories, impossible shapes, and the constant tick of a cosmic clock counting down an unknown doom. The Nocturnals' true plan. Klein uncovered the Nocturnals' ultimate goal: to break the barrier between the conscious world and the dreamscape, the realm of dreams and nightmares, and bring forth a new era ruled by eternal, sleepless beings. This ritual would not only enslave minds but also unleash horrors from the dreamscape into reality, turning Trier into a nexus of madness. Celine Var's power. Celine's own power had pushed beyond normal limits. No sleep meant no weakness, but also no mercy. Her eyes gleamed with cold fire, and her presence warped the minds of those around her, drawing them into endless wakefulness and madness. The rising conflict. The rising conflict. Klein's allies banded together for a final confrontation. Morel's dreamweaving helped shield their minds from Celine's influence. Elowen uncovered ancient texts detailing ways to sever the Nocturnals' connection to the dreamscape. But betrayal lurked close, and every moment of wakefulness brought Klein closer to losing himself. The battle for Trier's soul. The conflict culminated in a desperate battle in the heart of the city. Reality and nightmare collided as Klein faced Celine and her disciples amidst shifting illusions and spectral horrors. Using every ounce of foresight and mental fortitude, Klein fought not only for his life, but for the soul of Trier. The final confrontation. Beneath Trier's ancient cathedral, reality warped into a twisting nightmare. Celine Var stood at the center of a glowing sigil, her voice weaving commands that bent minds and shattered resolve. Her followers, eyes wild with sleepless fervor, advanced like phantoms born of insomnia itself. Klein stepped forward, heart pounding, seer powers flaring to their limits. Battle of mind and will. The clash was not just physical, it was a battle of consciousness. Celine's aura sought to drown Klein in endless wakefulness, to break his sanity piece by piece. But Klein summoned all his foresight and inner calm. Using dream-weaving techniques taught by Morel, he projected illusions that confused and stalled the Nocturnals. Eloan's ancient wards disrupted the sigil's power, severing their link to the dreamscape. Celene's defeat. Cornered and weakening, Selene unleashed a final desperate assault, a wave of raw mental energy that fractured the cathedral walls. Klein met her attack head-on, channeling every vision, every ounce of strength. With a final surge, he shattered Selene's control, sending her into a collapse of exhaustion and madness. Aftermath and reflection. Trier's nights returned, dark and silent once more. The Nocturnal's grip loosened, their disciples scattering into the shadows. Klein felt the heavy toll, his mind fractured by sleepless nights, visions burning behind his eyes. But he knew this battle was only one of many, foreshadowing the path ahead. In the quiet aftermath, whispers reached Klein's ears of new forces stirring. The Inevitability Circle's influence grew stronger. New players entered the game, and the Seer's path twisted deeper into darkness and revelation. End of Volume 5. Sleepless. Volume 6. Sunless. Introduction. The darkness grows. The shadows that had haunted Trier now stretched farther, swallowing light and hope. The sunless pathway, the embodiment of despair and darkness, began to cast its long shadow over the city. Those who walk this path master shadows themselves, becoming unseen, untouchable, and deadly. Yet with such power comes a corrosive loneliness, a soul slowly consumed by the void. Klein Moretti Sporen. Klein's journey through pathways had scarred him from seer to hunter, sleepless and beyond. Now, as darkness deepened, his mind wrestled with new visions, cryptic, black as night, filled with unseen watchers and whispered threats. The Inevitability Circle's influence tightened like a noose. The stakes had never been higher. New enemies, the Sunless. A mysterious faction known only as the Sunless emerged. Wielders of shadow magic and stealth. Led by Vera Blackthorn, a figure cloaked in enigma, they sought to plunge Trier into eternal darkness, both literal and spiritual. The city at a crossroads. Trier teetered on the edge of chaos. Political powers fractured. Old alliances cracked. And Klein found himself hunted not only by enemies, but by his own doubts and fears. The first clues. Reports surfaced of shadowy assassinations, vanishings with no trace, and inexplicable darkness creeping into once bright places. Klein, guided by fractured visions and his ever-faithful allies, began unraveling the Sunless's plot. Shadows in the streets. Trier's streets grew darker not just from absence of light, but from the creeping presence of the Sunless. Citizens spoke in hushed tones about figures slipping through walls, assassins striking without sound, and shadows that seemed to have minds of their own. Vera Blackthorn, Mistress of Shadows. Vera Blackthorn, leader of the Sunless, was a woman wrapped in secrets. Her past was a mystery, her motives inscrutable. Whispers described her as both ruthless and enigmatic, wielding shadow magic that bent reality to her will. Klein's growing isolation. Klein's visions fractured further, filled with shadowy watchers and cryptic warnings. The burden of the seer weighed heavier, and trust became a scarce commodity. Allies questioned their own loyalties. Enemies lurked within. The hunt begins. Klein pursued threads of the Sunless's influence, uncovering assassination plots aimed at destabilizing Trier's fragile peace. Each clue led deeper into shadow, closer to the heart of Vera Blackthorn's dark empire. Allies and tensions. Morel Voss and Elowen Graves stood by Klein, but even their strengths strained against the darkness. The balance of power shifted, and Klein had to question not just the enemy, but his own path forward. The darkness deepens. Trier's nights became battlegrounds of light and shadow. Klein moved cautiously, aware that every step might be watched by unseen eyes. The Sunless manipulated the city's fears, turning shadows into weapons. A fractured mind. Klein's visions twisted into fragmented riddles, haunting images of black suns, broken mirrors, and silent screams. His seer abilities stretched thin, battling illusions both external and internal. Vera's gambit. Vera Blackthorn unveiled her plan. To plunge Trier into a spiritual darkness so complete it would break the will of all who lived there. Using shadows, she sought to isolate the city from outside help and consolidate her control. Betrayal and secrets. As Klein delved deeper, betrayals surfaced. Trusted figures revealed hidden agendas, and alliances fractured under pressure. Klein faced enemies both without and within. The clash approaches. The pieces moved into place for a decisive confrontation. Klein prepared to face Vera and her Sunless in a battle that would determine Trier's fate. The final battle in the abyss. Deep beneath Trier's ancient catacombs, shadows twisted and writhed like living things. Vera Blackthorn awaited, a figure cloaked in darkness, her eyes glowing with cold fire. Klein stepped into the abyss, heart steeled, seer powers flaring against the encroaching void. Flash of light and shadow. The battle was a storm of visions and raw power. Vera manipulated shadows to confuse and ensnare, warping reality itself. Klein countered with foresight and illusions, projecting light into the deepest darkness, breaking the darkness. As the fight reached its peak, Klein shattered Vera's defenses with a surge of seer energy. The shadows recoiled, and Vera's control over the darkness fractured. With a final effort, Klein banished her presence, scattering the Sunless forces into retreat. Aftermath and new horizons. Trier breathed again, the darkness lifting but never fully gone. Vera's defeat was a victory, but the city remained a fragile balance of light and shadow. Klein knew this was only another step on a path fraught with peril, foreshadowing greater threats. Whispers spoke of the inevitability circle's deeper machinations. New players prepared to enter the game, and Klein's journey through the mysteries was far from over. Volume 7, Dream Eater. Introduction, where dreams become reality. In Trier, the line between waking and dreaming grew thinner. The dreamscape, once a distant, hidden realm, now leaked into the city's streets. Nightmares took shape, fears became tangible, and sleep offered no refuge. The Dream Eater Pathway. The Dream Eater Pathway was unlike any before it. Those who walked this path devoured dreams not just their own, but others as well, feeding on hope, memory, and even life itself. Such power came at a terrible price. The Eater risked losing their own identity, swallowed by the endless void of dreams consumed. Klein's haunting visions. Klein's dreams twisted into horrors and riddles. The Seer's gift became a curse as he faced the Dream Eater's seductive pull. Was he master of dreams or prey to them? New foes and old secrets. Amidst the chaos, new enemies emerged, dream shapers and nightmare beasts, servants of unknown masters. Old allies wrestled with their own shadows. The inevitability circle's plans grew ever more complex. The city on the edge, Trier teetered between sanity and madness. As dreams and reality collided, Klein had to navigate a world where nothing was certain, and danger lurked in the most familiar places. Nightmares in the streets. Trier's nights became haunted by creatures born of nightmares. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and citizens awoke with memories of horrors that never were yet felt all too real. The Dream Shapers. A faction known as the Dream Shapers emerged, wielders of dream magic who manipulated reality's fabric to their will. Their intentions were as murky as the dream world itself, shifting between ally and foe. Klein's inner struggle. The Dream Eater Pathway tested Klein's sanity. With every vision, every dream consumed, he risked losing himself, swallowed by the void where identity blurred and memories faded. Allies on the brink. Morel and Eloan worked tirelessly to anchor Klein to reality, yet even their support was fragile, threatened by the encroaching chaos. A growing mystery. Beneath the surface of the dreamscape lay a deeper secret, an ancient force stirring, one that might rewrite the rules of existence itself. The fractured dreamscape. The dreamscape, once a realm of fleeting images and ethereal beauty, became a fractured maze of horrors. Klein's visions grew more chaotic, shifting from haunting memories to nightmarish landscapes where time folded back on itself. Dream entities unleashed. Creatures born of fear and forgotten hopes prowled Trier's streets, attacking without warning. These dream entities threatened to consume the waking world, turning reality into an endless nightmare. The price of power. Walking the Dream Eater Pathway demanded sacrifice. Klein grappled with the loss of self, struggling to hold onto his identity amid the endless consumption of dreams. Revelations from Eloan. Eloan's research uncovered ancient texts hinting at the origin of the Dream Eater Pathway, linked to a forgotten god of dreams whose slumber was disturbed. This awakening threatened not just Trier, but all of existence. The ties that bind. Klein's relationships strained under the pressure. Morel's dream weaving became a vital anchor, but even their bond was tested by the growing darkness. The final battle within dreams. Klein descended into the heart of the dreamscape, a realm where reality twisted and nightmares took form. There, he confronted the ancient god whose restless slumber had unleashed chaos, clash of will and reality. The battle was a tempest of shifting realities. Klein's seer powers clashed with the god's infinite dream-weaving, each trying to bend existence to their will. Sacrifice and victory. Though the struggle nearly consumed him, Klein harnessed his inner strength and the bonds with his allies to banish the ancient force back into slumber. But the victory came with a price. Klein's soul bore the scars of dreams devoured. The aftermath. Trier awoke from the nightmare, but the city's fragile peace was forever changed. Dream and reality remained intertwined, a constant reminder of the Dream Eater's lingering influence. Foreshadowing the future, new mysteries awaited Klein as the inevitability circle's threads grew ever tighter. The path ahead would be darker, more perilous. Volume 8. The Abyssal Path. Introduction. Descent into the Abyss. Trier stood at the edge of oblivion. The abyssal pathway, the darkest and most perilous of all, called to Klein like a siren's whisper. This path promised ultimate knowledge, but at a cost few could imagine. The Abyssal Pathway. Walkers of the Abyssal Path embraced the void itself, drawing power from the emptiness beyond life and death. They mastered forbidden magics that warped reality, challenged fate, and toyed with the fabric of existence. But such power risked consuming their very souls, dragging them into eternal darkness. Klein's burden grows. Haunted by visions and memories, Klein felt the abyss pulling him deeper. The inevitability circle's true nature revealed itself, and with it, a terrible choice. New allies and old foes. In this final chapter, Klein's circle tightened. Allies from past trials returned, some changed, others broken. Enemies grew desperate, wielding the abyss's power to devastating effect. The city on the brink. Trier's streets twisted under otherworldly influence. Time faltered, shadows deepened, and reality fractured. The final confrontation loomed. Descent into darkness. Klein ventured deeper into the abyssal path, where the boundaries of reality blurred. Each step dragged him closer to the void, a place where light faded and the whispers of oblivion echoed endlessly. The true face of the inevitability circle. The inevitability circle revealed its darkest secrets. No longer just puppeteers in the shadows, they sought to rewrite destiny itself. Their plans extended beyond Trier to the very foundation of existence. Allies tested. Old friends, like Morel and Elowen, stood by Klein's side, but even their resolve wavered under the abyss's corrupting influence. New allies emerged, but trust became fragile as paranoia and despair took root. Enemies empowered. Klein's foes, empowered by abyssal magic, became monstrous and unpredictable. The battlefield became a chaotic war zone where survival meant more than just strength. Reality fractured. Trier itself began to unravel. Time folded. Memories fractured, and spaces twisted into impossible forms. Klein faced not just external enemies, but his own inner darkness. The final confrontation. At the heart of the abyss, Klein faced the inevitability circle's true leader, an entity beyond mortal comprehension, wielding power over fate itself. The battle was a cosmic clash, where time, space, and reality bent and shattered. Harnessing the abyss, drawing on every pathway he had walked, every lesson learned, Klein summoned his strength. He wove the seer's visions, the hunter's precision, the sleepless's resolve, and the Dream Eater's insight into a unified force, breaking the chains of fate. In a moment of pure will, Klein shattered the circle's grip on destiny. The abyss recoiled, and the fabric of reality began to heal. But the victory was bittersweet. Many sacrifices were made, and the scars would remain forever. A new dawn. Trier's skies brightened, though the shadows lingered. Klein, forever changed, understood that mysteries never truly end, they only evolve. His journey was far from over. Foreshadowing the future, new doors opened, deeper secrets whispered in the wind. The path ahead was uncertain, but Klein faced it with eyes wide open. End of Book 2. Thank you.